Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And if you're lost, you got lost in a great spot. We are going to be talking about what is body safe. We both work at a sex-positive toy store called Lotus Blooms, if you've ever heard of it. To Lotus Blooms, sex positivity means a lot of things. Throw a couple things out there. What does sex positive mean to you all?
Consent.
I have ideas if you need it.
Right.
Nobody else?
Not shame-based.
There you go. Pleasure focused.
Being able to have sex on a
Absolutely. Or not have sex if you don't want to.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yes means yes, as opposed to no means no.
Absolutely. What else does it mean to you?
Being intimate and supportive.
Are you mocking me?
Yeah,
no,
trying to
I'm
cheat off of your shirt.
She totally did cheat. Okay, so sex positivity means a lot of things to a lot of different people. Just because it's one thing to you doesn't mean it's the same thing to someone else. And sex positive means that we're going to accept that that is a fact. So what is sex positive to you might not be to you. And that's totally fair and awesome. We all have a different relationship with sex and sexuality, with our bodies and things like that. And sex positivity through Lotus Blooms, we try and celebrate that. So that is part of our sex positive mission. What else do we talk about at Lotus Blooms?
We talk about education and trying to provide a space where people can come and ask us questions and be okay with us being like, ooh, yeah, I don't know. Let me check back with you on that.
Yeah. We love education at Lotus Blooms, and we try and train the people who work at the store to be sex educators as it relates to the store. So while there are lots of sex educators who get degrees at Widener, there's also lots of sex educators who exist in the world in different ways. And we are trying to uphold the integrity of all of that by training people to be able to interact with people in a sex positive, body positive, education focused way. Body positivity is another huge cornerstone of what we talk about at Lotus Blooms. While we are two very privileged examples of what bodies can be, there are lots of different beautiful bodies. So let's throw out some ways that bodies can be beautiful. I know it's late in the day, but there are like really pretty people in this room. Describe the person next to you. Nobody?
soft hair.
Sure. Round sizes, tall people, people of different abilities.
Furry.
Oh. Yes,
Sorry, I
no,
don't
shave. That's
Shaving's
cool
not
too.
my thing.
So body positivity is also a really important part of what we do, and it also relates to sex positivity and body safety, what we're going to get into a little bit more. So why is body safe? Why is this topic even important to talk about?
So what we come with, to it with is the sex positivity and the pleasure base and all that stuff that we were just talking about. We feel that sexuality is a part of healthy living, quality of life. I think that's why we're all here, but I'll just throw it out there anyway. And so being able to talk about sex toys, which are specifically designed for pleasure, like in indirect ways, sex toys can help with fertility and other issues surrounding sexuality. But for the most part, they're designed for pleasure, and it allows you to accept the fact that that sexuality is very pleasurable, and it doesn't have to be about reproduction or prevention or anything like that. That's another really cool thing about what we do too, is that being able to talk to people about body safe toys and materials makes a space to talk about sex positivity and without having to default to prevention. Because unfortunately, a lot of us in this career field can feel stuck talking about prevention or talking about sexuality in a very narrow way.
And there's lots of ways to talk about the intersection of those. So I started my career in this field actually working as a counselor at a teen shelter. So not the best place. They don't really like us talking about sex toys and lubes with teenagers, right? It's just not always acceptable. But there are ways to talk about sex toys, aids, and lube with all people so as to be inclusive of all people's sex play, for example. And you can also connect it to things like prevention. Right? So how do you connect pleasure and lube to prevention? Oh, I don't know. When you use condoms, use lube so that there's less friction and there's less likelihood of it breaking. Boom. We are still bringing the aspect of pleasure into a prevention discussion. And for us, that's super, super important because it empowers people to know that sexuality is natural and healthy. And it's also really important. Lube is really important. Condoms not breaking is really important for a lot of people. And being able to tie all that together is why we're here. Another reason why body safety is a topic that we're all sitting here listening to is because sex toys and lubes are not regulated. Because we don't like to talk about pleasure. We like to talk about sex from a prevention perspective. So we regulate condoms, the size of them, and how thick the latex has to be and things like that. We don't regulate what goes into the lubes that we put on the condoms, which causes lots of dryness and irritation for lots of people who then don't use condoms. We don't talk about what goes into sex toys that go into really intimate parts of our bodies.
Yeah, and then we also don't talk about how to have prevention around sex toys. So that's kind of part of what we do. And also just, sex should be fun, and maybe not always talking about the sad things all the time, because believe it or not, it can be fun.
Shocker.
Right.
So what does this have to do with being a change maker? What is talking about sex positivity, body positivity, and body safety have to do with being a change maker? It's us taking the information that we now know about lube and the science behind it, about toys and sex aids and all the different ways that they can be incorporated into different people's sex play and also sex needs, and upping that level. So instead of just talking about toys, just talking about lube, we're talking about safe toys and safe lube so that it's actually pleasurable for people. Sex toys and lube can be a source of a lot of problems, but it can also be the source of a lot of solutions. And if we as educators, as clinicians, as community organizers have this information in our repertoire, we can empower our community members, we can empower our students, and we can empower our clients to be able to take that information and go further with it so that they can figure out what works best for their body.
So the purpose of this workshop is to kind of go behind the curtain at Lotus Blooms. We actually have a lot of curtains, so that's on par. But anyway, so you're kind of going behind the curtain in terms of what we look at as employees at the store and what type of vetting process we do when trying to find body safe toys. Just to be aware and to kind of manage expectations, since we truly believe that body safety falls on a spectrum, on a continuum, so to speak, you might disagree with us. Might say this doesn't work for you, or it doesn't work for the people that you work with, and that's totally cool, totally fine. It's all part of this discussion we have. We just really want to have the discussion with you. If this is not your jam, if anything starts to upset you or offend you, that is not our intention. Please take a moment to take care of yourself. If you want to come talk to us afterwards or later, we do have business cards here, specifically Teal, so you can complain about how terrible she is.
You're the best. But I'll take it. I am always looking to learn more, and there's probably, depending on the toys that you use, the lube that you use, your life experience, there's probably more about one specific thing that each one of you knows about way more than I do, even though I work at the store. And I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to hear the back and forth of why this is important to you and why we're talking about the wrong thing so that we can move forward and actually not perpetuate the wrong thing. Also, you all, and then hopefully your clients and whatever have you, know their bodies better than we do. So while I can say X, Y, and Z, you can say, no way, Jose, A, B, and C works better for me. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong, because you know your body better. 12 minutes, I think, is the extent of time for most of you that I've been around your bodies. Hopefully it's been upwards of 18 years before, or since you guys have known. So keep that in mind as we move forward with the information that we're talking about as well. It all depends on you and your experience and what you're using it all for. But feel free to ask and challenge as well. Just like diets, body safety, there's like thousands of different ideas out there. There's thousands of different ways to use it. Choose what works best for you within your field.
It also doesn't mean that what you're doing right now in this hot second is not good and not working. If you find out that one of your toys at home is one of the problem child, so to speak, you don't have to go home and throw that away immediately. We're just throwing it out there that there's a lot of science that says that that may irritate your body over time. So if you start running into problems, just keep this little nugget in the back of your mind being like, maybe I need to look into getting a different toy, or maybe when it dies, sad face, you can upgrade and find something really cool that you know has good material in it.
Absolutely. How many educator-focused people do we have in this room? Awesome. All right. How many mental health clinician? Other side of it. Yes.
Woo!
Good mix.
Oh, I'm not biased.
Who else works in the field and not one of those fields? Not one of those.
Please share.
Oh, awesome. Even better. Sorry.
Welcome.
Thank
So
you
you do
for
a little
sharing.
bit of both. Fabulous.
So we have lots of different perspectives here. We're going to do lots of interactive things. Please share from your perspectives and your experience of working with clients. So for all of you, think about the population you work with right now or would like to work with. When should or when would it be appropriate for you to talk about toys or lube or aids within the context of your discussions with people? And I would love for you to think about it for 30 seconds and then share as it comes up. When should or would it be appropriate for you to talk about things?
When my client is in a more stable place, because often I have clients coming in to me that are more in crisis, and related to how they're presenting. I work with a lot of trans youth, and how they're presenting and how they're accepted in their school environments, and then being able to deal with that trauma first that they're going through, and once they're able to be on like a level playing field, then being able to open up the conversation about pleasure and potential toys or moves that they might be able to.
Sure.
I work with currently and after Widener want to continue working with older adults. And so like when the desire of wanting to stay sexual, reignite sexuality, or saying that they do need some other sort of help or aid or stimulation.
So aging and older adults.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I work primarily with the LGBT community surrounding HIV transmission and reduction. So I'm always talking about lube and condoms with both men and women. I educate a lot of women about using either external or internal condoms, especially for mutual masturbation if you're sharing a toy. So always talk about that stuff.
Anyone else? There's lots of different ways. I used the example earlier when we're talking to prevention, using lube. What else? There's got to be at least one more. Or when can you think of a conversation that you probably shouldn't have that conversation, and can we brainstorm why we might be able to? So if right off the top of your head your thought was, no way, I can't use that with my population, if you don't mind, raise your hand. Go for it.
I work with in a school setting, or I'm doing my internship right now in a school setting with special needs high schoolers, and we don't talk about sexual activity directly. I can think maybe there might be an instance in one-on-one therapy that it may come up, but for me to bring it up would not be appropriate.
In a school setting.
Yeah.
Okay, and I won't argue with that for sake of your job, absolutely, and that's something, again, to take into consideration. It's part of why we frame this the way we do. But there are different ways that we can talk about lube toys as aids, and if that conversation does come up, it doesn't have to be as pleasure-focused as we like to talk about it for, but definitely is something that's aid-focused. So remember, there's lots of different ways to have the conversation. Awesome. So what is body safety? We talked about it being on a continuum. There's not something that's totally 100% safe, and there's not something that's totally 100% terrible. I could probably name a few that I think, and you could probably name 10 that you think, and they're all going to be different as well. Categories of body safety. So let's just get into it. I'm going to start passing these around, and Lauren's going to talk about the different ways. These are toys. Some of them are charged, some of them aren't. But feel free to press the plus button to turn them on. Jess, do you mind helping us in some of them out? Press the minus button or the button to turn them off. And thank you so much. And just kind of check them out. We're going to look at the shape. Make sure there's like one or two right around you. You can toss the back and around. Part of body safety is actually the construction of toys. And then tell me where there's a gap and I'll hand you another fun one. Does everyone have one around, or do we not have any in the back?
Oh, that's
That's right. Okay, So construction of toys. The toys are made in different shapes. Ideally, you're not going to want to have something really sharp that's used for an insertable or any external, unless you're actually looking to participate in blood play. So do any of your toys have super, super sharp edges? Not the case that it's in, but sharp edges. No, that's because, again, insertables, we're not looking to kind of create any more tears than are naturally going to occur during sex play. What other things are important?
So other things we want to look at are kind of the function. So if I'm looking to use a toy anally, it must have a flared base. For anyone who hasn't taken 644, is that the numbers? Oh, it's been too long. Anyway, so the bio class at Widener, so the rectum actually pulls despite what we think it does. And so if you try to use anything that doesn't have a flared base, you're gonna have a fun trip on Sex Sent Me to the ER. Like,
so how many of you think you have a flared base on your toy? Hold it up if you have a flared base. Potentially. So that's a really cute decoration that tells you the brand.
oh,
But it's okay. I appreciate you being willing. Yes. So if you run your hand, if you don't mind, nobody look at her like she's jacking it off. But if you just run your hand across it, you see that there's nothing that actually, like, your hand stops across. It's very smooth. There's no flared base on that one. Who else thinks they might have a flared base?
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah.
Do you by any chance just name there is some book out there that apparently has pictures like everything is stuck up.
Definitely heard of that.
I don't know that book. I do know there's something called the internet.
I would also just look at the produce section of the grocery store. You'll find a lot of things that got stuff.
Is that why there's a string on this, just in case you lose it?
No, so for like, that's a good question.
I was kidding.
Well, that's why there's strings on lots of like toys, like Kegel exercises and stuff. It's a retrieval cord, so there's that. Someone has like navy blue toys. If you'll hold those up, navy blue with a white. Yep, there's one there, and there should be.
No, that's
One
not
of
good.
them, I know, but one of them has a base on it. Does yours have a base?
I think it's only an email. And yeah, the one Christine's got.
Ah, yes. Does that have a base or no? Nope, no base on that one. Okay, what about, some of you have two-pronged ones, otherwise known as rabbit toys.
There we go.
Yes.
That lime green one.
So oftentimes
There
we
we go.
think of
Yeah.
these toys as like rabbit toys. If you can kind of picture that having rabbit ears instead. They're created to be used penetratively, so insert into the vagina and penetrate the clitoris externally. There's lots of other ways you can use it. If you run your hand all the way down it, if anyone doesn't mind holding it up and doing it, right? There's a base. You can use that in your backside. That is safe to use. It's gonna like stop at the sphincter and not get sucked back in. Someone has a tiny little blue plastic toy. It looks like a lipstick. Yes. Hold that up. Will you hold it in between your fingers, can you? Yeah, that is a perfect example of something you should not use for anal play. It's going to get sucked in there. And it will end up in the ER, and then they'll have lots of funny stories about you. It's just true. That's what nurses like have fun with. And then I think there's one more that it smells bad.
No, Christine already held it up.
I know. Well, let's hold it up one more time.
There it is. There it is.
Yep. See the testicles on that? That is technically a flared face. Also, like a body is a flared face. Yep. Well, I mean, it technically is. So, toy construction, toy shape, make sure there's a flared base on anything you're sticking up your or your partner's hands.
Yeah. So kind of jumping off of that, so we talked about the lime green rabbit toy. There's something to be said about ergonomic shape. While that could be used anally, it's not the easiest toy to work in there. Trying to kind of like squish a marshmallow into a parking meter, like you can just find something different. Like,
Just picture that for 2 seconds. It's really hard. She tried it earlier.
Shut up. So anytime you're trying to force something that's really not going to work, the chances of it not being successful is really high. And then that's when you could start debating how body safe is it to shove something that isn't supposed to go there in there. Does that make sense? Same with getting a very ostensibly like massive toy when you're not.
I mean,
You could use a water bottle, something cylindrical. Anyway,
some people like it.
like if you're trying to find something that is so big that your body has never accommodated, doesn't matter what that thing is made of. If your body cannot work with it, I would argue that it ceases to be body safe.
Absolutely. And so in that, she's not saying that people can't accommodate girth in different areas of their sex play, but it's more that your body needs to work your way up to that in any capacity, whether it's vaginal play, anal play, something in your mouth. All of those things need to be worked up to. Other things that we need to consider when we're looking at toy manufacturing and toy construction are seams. So we are sticking things inside of orifices that are oftentimes lubricated, whether it's natural or synthetic lubrication. That means they get a little bit wet, okay? Then you take it out, and there are stuff on there. When there's no seams on a toy, it's super easy to clean. You just wipe it off with toy cleaner or really mild soap and water, depending on what's comfortable for you. So everyone who has one, if you don't mind holding up the Layla toys, they're the ones with the white bases.
They're also the small
Absolutely.
pink one.
And then the small pink one, right?
No, not that one. There we go.
Beautiful
Lipstick.
toys, beautiful construction. But you notice that there are two different types of materials on there. And we'll talk about toy materials in depth in a few minutes. But that means that there's a seam. What do seams mean? Yeah, so we need to be really careful. We need to tell our clients and students to be really careful that if we're using toys with seams, especially if we're using them with multiple partners, they really need to be careful about seams and cleaning the seams.
And it doesn't matter whether your partners are clean, your nightstand necessarily isn't.
Dust gets stuck in seams. Actually, Robert, do you mind holding that one up again? There's dust stuck on it. If you turn it sideways, see how that's gross. We don't want that inside of anywhere.
That lives in this bag,
Yep.
and it still looks like that.
It probably is mold. Probably. We'll talk more about that one
Let's not say we're
specifically
passing moldy toys.
So there's lots of seams on toys. If you're super lazy, your clients are super lazy, encourage them to look for toys without seams. Toys that are just made of one, seamless toys, exactly. Okay.
Is there any questions about that before we move forward?
Toy construction, toy shape, how toys are manufactured.
Okay.
When there's battery, actually, I'll just say another one. The purple ones, the blue ones, that one. The battery pops up, right? They're beautiful, again, beautifully made toys, wonderful company, still seems where most batteries go into. That's why a lot of rechargeable toys are often easier to clean. There's less seams. Battery operated toys, you just have to be careful.
Absolutely. So there's no questions. We were just talking about things getting stuck in nooks and crannies. Let's talk about things you want in your nooks and crannies, like lube.
I'm going to pass these around as well while Lauren starts talking about lubes. There's lots of different types of lube. We actually pretty much have one brand. We're a little bit biased. We do love Sliquid. Do you mind passing them back? Feel free to put some on your fingers. We do have tissues. Feel free to taste them if you'd like. They are safe to taste.
Yeah, there's about 6 different flavors if you're really trying to go for the top bag. All right, so the majority of the ones going around is a brand called Sliquid. It's a water-based lubricant, so water means blood.
Absolutely. Other types of lubes that we often talk about are silicone lubes. We talk about aloe-based lubes. We talk about hybrids. A last type of lubricant that people often talk about are oil-based lubes. At Lowe's Limbs, we encourage people who have sensitivities or who don't know what lube they like to stay away from oil-based lubes for a couple reasons. One, oil does not work with latex or silicone toys. It also doesn't flush naturally from the body. So what it can do is actually create a breeding ground for bacteria. Yes. Oil-based lubes. Yeah, oil, latex, nut friends, like oil condoms, massage oil condoms, pops them. But also, it doesn't flash naturally from the body. What it does, it coats it, and so it just creates a space where bacteria is more likely to fester. Yes.
It's a great exercise where if you have somebody put a spoonful of peanut butter and some chewing gum in their mouth, and the gum slowly melts because it's made of similar material to latex. And it's a good illustration of this is what happens when you mix the oil.
That's awesome. That's an awesome education technique. It's also a great way to get gum out of your hair.
Yeah.
I've done that before too. But yeah, thank you for that. Yes. So
Or just
so oil-based lubes we don't recommend. A lot of people are like, well, what about coconut oil? I use it for my hair. I use it for lotion. I use it for cooking. I can do that. I'm not going to tell you. You know your body better than I do. There's lots of things that coconut oil is made up of that are actually really good and nourishing for your body. If you don't know, and if you have other options, why not use something that is not proven to just kind of coat the lining of your body and trap bacteria?
Yeah, and to that extent, some things have been known to have antimicrobial properties, and concepts like that. First off, antimicrobial properties doesn't mean antimicrobial. Let's just clarify that for the record. And also, it's less about what is in the lube. It's also very much about what the lube is trapping into the pores in your body. And if any of those things that get trapped into your body start being irritating, that's going to be just as problematic as having a bad lube. So the water-based lube is going to absorb really nicely. Water absorption, very nice. Silicone does not absorb, but it flushes out of the body, so it's still not going into pores and hanging out in there. Aloe also gets absorbed.
Aloe does get absorbed naturally into the body. Exactly. Questions on? Yes. I actually, there's a couple different. We looked it up the other day.
I think it is.
I think I don't know all the different like brands. I would look to see what the ingredients list are, and that's actually what we're just jumping into, is looking at the ingredients list on lubes. What are some reasons you have ever heard that people choose not to use lube? Reasons? Yes.
I mean, I'll like say myself, like I have a highly sensitive body, and the past 3-4 years, every time I've tried lubricants, it burns like nobody's business, like acid, and so I just don't use it.
Awesome. Not awesome that it happens, but an awesome example and something we hear all the time. Thank you for sharing.
I've had guys be like, no, we're not using lube because it's my job to make you lube yourself. And I'm like, well, okay, well, you're putting a lot of pressure on a sensitive area. Yeah.
And to jump off that, I've heard just the opposite. Like a lot of female people are like, no, I don't need it because my partner does X, Y, and Z.
Or
All right.
I would rather lubricate.
Myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
So the issue
Wait, can you speak a little bit more to that? Is because there was a lot of but why? Got it. Okay.
Because it tastes bad, or just because it's too much going on?
It's not edible.
Right.
No, gotcha.
Go ahead. So it's
that goes like the water-based versus the oil-based, and that makes a big difference.
yeah, absolutely. So okay. Oh yes, please.
For some people, it's like not in their definition of regular sexuality, like bringing in these extra materials feels strange to them.
Absolutely. And so we have reasons for all of those as to why, sure, that might be a thing for you at some point, but there's also lots of different reasons why lube is great. So it's not part of like natural, I mean, neither are condoms, but people use them for really good things. Neither are toys, you know. Technically, your fingers aren't part of your genitals, and if we're only talking about penetrative, sex with genitals, like, you probably shouldn't use your hands or your mouth. That's way no fun, right? So there's lots of ways to combat things like that, and hopefully as like solution providers, educators, and clinicians, we can kind of brainstorm ways to kind of circumvent these myths about lube.
What about the problem of a lot of lubes having like glycerin or?
Hey, you're the
Such
perfect transition into what we're talking about. Yes, and so that's exactly it. What materials should you stay away from so that it's not, ew, gross, there's lube on you, but we're like, sign me up for that flavor. I had someone come into the store a couple weeks ago and he was like, not to be like really crude but is there a lube that doesn't taste like that? Like, well, it depends where you put it. The lube that you use should not taste disgusting, because if it tastes like chemicals, if it tastes like what that gross looking toy smells like, you probably shouldn't be putting it in your sensitive areas.
You also won't use it, hence defeating the purpose of the lube.
Yeah, absolutely. So things like glycerin is one reason. It's a sugar derivative. It's a reason why lubes get sticky tacky. It also contributes to yeast infections. Not fun.
The reason why it is used is because it's cheap. It can be flavored really easily. And what was the other thing? Oh, it can be very slippery. But again, just also keep in mind as you're testing lubes on your fingers, it can change when it starts interacting with other body parts that are not your hands. If you get my drift, your genitals, I'll just call it. Yeah.
We can say those words here. Yes. So things to look out for when you're looking at the back of lube: glycerin, any types of sugar derivatives. And we can't go into like the whole list of really fancy scientific words, but look up sugar derivatives or look up glycerin and lubes, and that'll be yes.
Are these listed on your website?
We absolutely do. Yeah. And then there are more as well. And we'll get into being able to do the research. That's okay. We're excited about it too. We're super excited about it. Parabens. Parabens are preservatives that are cheap, that are oftentimes put into lubricants. Again, because they're cheap, and also they mock the body's natural hormones. So while for like science and cheap manufacturing companies, that sounds great, they really don't care about your body and your well-being. And they're really bad for you. So someone who has maybe hormone deficiencies, maybe someone who has breast cancer and who is taking hormone supplements, maybe anyone who has a sensitive system, parabens are really bad for your body. So if you see lubricants with parabens in them or something that ends in parabens, ideally you would stay away.
So this may sound redundant, but again, like a lot of parabens are in makeup. So if you're sitting there being like, oh, well, my makeup has parabens in it, so it's okay for my body. Again, different body parts react differently. Also just know that especially the vagina and the anus are beautiful ecosystems that are much more delicate than your skin, which prevents like things from getting to your vagina, shockingly. And also anything that goes in your mouth, again, not necessarily safe to go into other holes in your body.
Yeah, think about that for a second. Some people are like, oh, if it's safe to eat, it's safe to put. Yeah, no. If it's safe to eat, it's safe to put in your eye. No, so why are we putting it in our vagina? Let's think a little bit more critically and empower our audiences to think a little bit more critically about what we're putting inside our bodies. Other things to kind of stay away from: petrochemicals, cause irritation, cause acid like burning. Petrochemicals are derivatives of fossil fuels. Again, like not something that sounds like it should go inside of us, right? It's in a lot of lubes. And the last thing that we always talk about are desensitizing agents. So numbing creams and things like that. Why do we keep them?
So some people are super into pain. That's fine, do you. But also the pain sensors in your body were to alert you that something's going wrong. So if you're into pain, that's cool, be with that pain, but also know that there's pain that you're not into, and if you're using numbing agents, you're gonna miss all of it. So that's the thing, is that if you're using numbing agents for, let's say, preventing a gag reflex or anything like that, there's a chance that you're gagging for a reason, and there's a way to circumnavigate and do deep throating without having to hurt yourself or your body.
A lot of people will ask us about like anal-ase or like things like that. Again, there's a reason your body is responding that way, and like we said before, like work your way up in certain ways. Numbing your body is also like numbing your partner's body. And all that work you're trying to do to like make your partner feel real good, you're just making it harder on yourself if you're using a numbing agent.
And yeah, you just randomly reminded me of poppers, so I'll just throw it out into the universe. Poppers are used to be a relaxant. They also do severe nerve damage to your spine and your brain. And Poppers are
They're like whippets, or you sniff them.
they're an inhalant. It's acryl nitrate.
That's
I'm
a
a
fancy
chemist.
word. If you Google poppers, basically, it oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes it's used in the gay men's scene as like an arousal agent.
And then one last thing on lubricants before we move forward with other ingredients. Again, ergonomics. So Uberlube, which I'm sure if you've ever been to a sexuality conference, you've got Uberlube hanging around your house. But it's a great silicone lubricant. It is great for so many different things. It does not interact well with silicone toys. Silicone toys are awesome. Silicone lube is awesome. Together, chemically, they like spoon and hug each other and then damage your toy. And that's very sad for everybody. That's why we do water-based or hybrid lubricants. Also, Uberlube, fantastic, really, really slick. Not the best for anal sex because it's a little too thin. The anus doesn't secrete fluids. That sounds so gross, but let's just call it what it is. Power through it. So it doesn't
Secrete
moisturize.
natural lubrication.
Right. So you need something that's a little bit thicker, has a little bit more give. Again, having a product that's body safe but using it in a non-safe way totally counteracts what you're trying to do.
Absolutely. So more information on lubricants. Obviously, we love for people to go to our website. There's also a lot of people doing this work about body safety. Sarah Mueller, who is with Smitten Kitten, is doing amazing research on lube. And she should probably have been up here for the past 20 minutes talking about lubricant. But so her information is available to all of you online. Look it up, Google it. It's so important, and it's amazing that she's being able to do it. So Sarah Mueller, she's brilliant. She's brilliant. So look up her lube pamphlet. She's with Smitten Kitten, which is another sex positive education focused store.
Any questions about lube before we move on? Yes. Let's talk about the brands that we really like, because that's a shorter
Okay,
list.
let me tell you.
The reason I asked is because most parents go to the drugstore.
Right.
And you go to CVS.
KY,
and
like KY.
Like all the typical brands, KY. So what are the really popular brands that people typically buy that you really should?
So here, I'm gonna preface it and be like super clinical PC about it. We went into Target earlier and we were like, oh, we forgot an aloe-based lube. So we were looking at the ingredients and all the lubes that are in Target, for example. KY, Trojan ones, Astro Glide, Wet, things like that. And oftentimes on the ingredients list, you will find the ingredients that we just listed. So that's why we gave you those ingredients, is so that you can look and see if those ingredients are in the lubes and potentially causing irritation for you or your clients. That said, if it's a matter of using one of those lubes and not using lube, and you're trying to engage in anal play or trying to use or play with toys and condoms at the same time, like that creates friction. You need lube for that. Again, we talk about it from a harm reduction model. If you have nothing versus that, obviously, but if you have the means and resources to look into lube and invest in a little bit better lube that is going to be safer for your body in particular, that's what we would encourage.
You're not going to say, don't buy KY.
I can't say that because there are probably 20 people in this room who have used it, and it's like, it's not my favorite, but I'll totally use it again because it's cheap in there, and it doesn't irritate, I've been a student for a long time. I know what student loan debt looks like, but also if you can invest in a lube because it's part of like our body and our pleasure and something that's really, really important, maybe think about it like that instead of like buying dinner twice next week or going out to dinner or having that extra drink. Like it's a matter of priorities. If we can prioritize the body safety of our toys that are very intimate, then maybe that's how we can reframe it for ourselves. For sure.
Are there any flavored lubricants that are okay for vaginal intercourse, or do all flavored lubricants have some sort of sugar in them?
Good question. So some of the ones that we passed around are flavored. They don't have glycerin or sugar derivatives in them. They have aspartame, so if that's an allergen for use particularly, I would stay away from it. But those are safe for vaginal use. This liquid flavored ones? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna move on to toys. We have an activity. So In groups, kind of surround yourself. There should be papers with toy materials on them.
Yeah, there's 7 pieces of paper, and there's also 7 markers that I set on the chairs. Like those back at some point.
So we are asking you to use your own resources of phones or laptops or iPads. I have one extra if no group has any access to that. And Google the toy material that is on your page. So what I want you to write on your page as a group is describe the toy material, maybe other names that it's called, and its level of body safety. So we're going to give you guys about 10 minutes in groups to name whatever it's called. Thank you. You didn't have to do that. To name it, whatever other names are associated with that main name on top.
Right, that's true.
Class, also referred to as
And
class.
what is its level of body
That's pretty
safety?
much just
Class.
It's body safe as long as you don't break it.
Right. Yeah. As long as it doesn't have any cracks in it, it's like
Yeah, very easy.
cracks
You
with
can
sharp
just
edges.
fucking
How would you charge this?
And it's like, so it's not awesome, but I can just
Yeah, but yes, the most important thing is that it's a lot that write it.
I have some that
Yeah.
I'll put a question mark because maybe some of them can read these questions.
Oh, I haven't.
Also, shatterproof doesn't mean what most people think.
It just means that if things shatter to like fetish, like
Yeah.
Okay, pause for 2 seconds. While we were doing our research, keep in mind these questions on the board. What search terms are you using to find this information? Think about what gets you to the actual good information, and how do you know that this is good information? Again, sex toy manufacturers aren't actually looking out for your well-being. So if they write silicone on there, unfortunately, it might not be silicone because it's not regulated like condoms are. So how do you know that the information that you're looking up or your clients are looking up is accurate? So keep that in mind as you're looking. And also, what do all these really fancy words like propylene describe what this toy material is? You're able to describe that. And lastly, how are you able to describe this to the client that you, as a presenter, or so there's a lot more to think about, but keep these questions in mind as you're looking at your research.
Could I use that? Thank you.
What is it? Like what else is those called? They're called like
Typically,
and how body. Okay.
I did sex material, sexual material stuff. That is.
I'm actually gonna hold this.
Yeah, so like tunable, non-toxic material.
That's really important.
Materials, in gentle.
It doesn't really react to anything.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess it'd be sort of like someone could have seen the pic with their I Googled body safe when I had service. I just Googled. Oh wait,
And it's
hold on.
fine amount of education.
Let's try it. And then we see, look at this nice little house. Stone is one under. Right.
Any damage they should.
Not a toxic. They don't have any harmful chemicals.
first time I got, I only have been involved in they're easily like what you're telling me. So what is the Rosie Reed Rose Quartz Rock?
Because users just die glass to begin with.
It's body safe.
Right, yeah. Right. Did I not put it in the box? Did I put it in the bag? It's similar to glass if it's like although it's so like honestly like it's nice to like come off. And you're not
I've never heard of a vibrating glass.
right.
Well, and you don't have to worry about.
5 minutes. This is from Ms. Ruby. It's not like it's
Is it okay? Are you guys having? Oh yeah.
No, I've got mine working now.
Doesn't matter what you're doing.
It's okay. It's just maybe it's
All
just
right,
the
not
room where
vibrating.
everybody's trying to vibrate.
Yeah, my phone also earlier.
Yeah. All right. So what is
Although now we're getting wow.
What is
Although we're getting out of
what are other
It's not flexible at all. You cannot bend it, you cannot twist it. It is the shape you have, which makes it bad for anal play. Because your anus basically goes
unless you had a curve.
but it's usually better to have something that has at least a little
I don't know.
Yeah, it has.
I mean, you know, everybody has their own.
Do you need to put a teeth? You don't have to get rid of it every couple of years. It's ready. It is ready. Yeah.
Me too, right? Like, you gotta like,
But these little ass.
Really?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm like, okay, so what is this? And it's hot and
Wait, 22, like, what's that? I don't
Which gold is very non-reactive too.
Are you willing to candies?
Not nearly as good as glass. Well, gold is not as non-reactive as glass.
Okay, here, we can put this
Relatively for
But you do our own
I like it.
Oh, yes, this
Oh, where are we not far?
Yeah, but that is silver. Silver doesn't react, so.
Real silver, yeah, that's what
And copper barely does as well.
Yeah.
Copper barely imparts it.
That was awesome. All right, 2 minutes.
They're straight down on the.
Well, it's not.
Yeah, about six.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I have two faces.
Right. Right. Alrighty, taking the last minute and start wrapping it up.
We'll see out of our heads.
Well done.
Yeah, maybe two.
I don't know what time for it.
Alrighty. Bring it on in.
I guess I don't.
Who would like to go first? Ooh. Okay. I love it. All right. If you will have one person stand up and hold it, and someone else talk, that would be super helpful. Or just hold up real high so there are more people who can see it. Okay. So you're not standing. Oh, no. We had stone, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's stone. So it's, what are we saying? Yeah, so that's what is, it depends on the type of stone that you use. That can cave, so you can use marble, but also jade.
Found a
We
jade
found moonstone.
Non-porous.
Non-porous stones are the safest as of like any sort of porous material. Yeah, non-porous equals less. There it is, hiding
Less
places.
hiding places. Yes, that's
yeah.
a good one. And keep these in mind as educators and clinicians. How can you talk to your clients about it? There's less hiding places. Yeah, is a really good way to say that. Absolutely.
So, and then the terms that we used to search for this were like sex toy material, stone, or stone sex toys. And we got a few websites that seemed fairly reliable based off of the information that was given to us. Safety, it is fairly safe, especially if you use non-porous stone. It's not toxic. There's no other chemicals. It's not artificially made or man-made. It's a stone.
Although we did find one that was a conglomerate of a stone with silver, so you just want to be aware, like if you have metal things or
You don't want
Outer
silver
materials.
of any sort of
or you're going to an
Areas.
airport.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Any questions about stone?
Some of them look really, really pretty.
Yeah. Some of them look really, really pretty are
not the best.
Yes, exactly. And so just be aware of that. So what would you talk to your audience? Like if you were going to tell them they asked about, there is like, they're Kegel exercisers. What are they? How do you say them? Yoni eggs. So if one of your clients or students asked you about that, what would you say? Like, what would your response to them be?
I would say to like do your research, make sure that it's a stone that's like safe for you, that's not porous, that it's not conglomerate like we found, and that just do your research on any sex toy.
Absolutely.
And maybe like know that like where are you getting it and is it made for the intent? Like is that the intention of them?
Yeah, it's
But like don't
pretty
find a
rocks.
stone paperweight and be like, this is pretty, it'll fit.
Well, if you're you know, you might, like that might not be the purpose. It may have like other dust and like other stuff on it. Like,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. So it should be finished with a material that's body safe. Which is same that goes for wood. There are beautiful wood toys out there. Make sure they're yes.
Yes,
Well,
so
splinters
don't-
great, but they're finished with things that are really, really smooth. Just make sure they're actually body safe and not like exuding chemicals into your orifices. Sounds cool, but it's so on a continuum of body safety, where do you think this would go? Like not body safe at all, super body safe, or it's
Very
fairly that way.
Yeah, it's
Awesome.
fairly body safe.
Cool. Do you mind going next?
Sure.
Go for it.
So we have leather. I'm gonna stand up, so I'm lazy. Maybe I'll stand up. Okay. All right, so we have leather, and there's really no other name for leather. Maybe like cowhide, you know, means like a sex toy. But so our main issue was, is it actually made of leather or pleather? So we didn't really. It's kind of hard to like look up ingredients of leather because it's not like made of anything. So it's just leather. But we saw that a lot of restraints, a lot of BDSM things are made of leather, and you have to worry about how cheap they are because it could potentially be dangerous. Things may affect you differently, but depending on what they're made of. But if it is real leather, it's very safe. It's a natural material. Like I'm sure somebody here owns something leather. Like it's very, it's a it's not man-made. It comes from earth or animals. But what we looked up, it almost never said leather like at the bottom. Like some things when you buy it's like 100% leather, like purse or shoes or whatever. Never said it. Never stated anything about what it was made of, where it was made, how cheaply it was made. And to be honest, nothing that's $5 is going to be made out of leather. Like, it's just not going to happen. So if it's real leather, I would say very, very body safe. But if you really have to make sure that it's actually made of leather.
but like they should never be in circles.
Right.
They can harbor.
So exactly. Leather is porous, right? So we'll talk about different intersections of how things can be used as sex toys, like you said, within the BDSM or kink communities, fetish communities. So if you're going to use a leather flogger or whip, for example, that is a porous material. Ways to be able to kind of be body safe with it. If you know that you are going to draw blood, like if you're going to use enough force, then that's within your kind of negotiation. then make sure that you're only using that leather porous flogger with one partner, that same partner. Otherwise, there are ways to clean leather to a certain extent. You can't like dip it in bleach, it's gonna ruin your beautiful leather toy. But again, encouraging you ourselves and also your clients to be careful about who they are interacting with their toys. Awesome.
And also, if you happen to get blood or any other type of bodily fluid accidentally on your leather, I'm just going to say it for the record, don't buy anything that you're not willing to destroy, because transmitting diseases or injuring somebody or anything like that is much more costly than the price of a new toy. Yes.
Just quickly on the leather thing, if you're into knife play and you have your leather sheath for your very nice knife, you want to make sure that you properly clean off your knife before putting it back into the sheath, because there's all sorts of things on the knives themselves.
Absolutely. Leather cock rings are also a thing. So while they are not being inserted necessarily, there are still fluids around that area. Be careful with that as well. Thank you. All right, so on a continuum, leather, body safe, super body, or not body safe, or super body safe. So towards this way. Okay. Awesome. Who's next? Do you mind? We'll just go around and make it easy.
Just to look up, use the term steel sex toys. The first website was goodvibrations.com, which we determined was a reputable source. So one of the big brands that we came across was Enjoy.
Yes.
And we also got Ball Balls as a popular steel sex toy. Some of the benefits of steel sex toys are that they're easy to clean and sterilize since they're non-porous. They can be good for temperature play since they can be heated or cooled. A good alternative to glass possibly, since glass can be breakable. And there's multiple uses, not just penetrative. For instance, there can be clamps, cock rings, and cups that are made out of steel. Some of the cons, possible allergy, maybe some people are allergic to some metals. And if you're traveling with your Enjoy, you don't want your big metals.
Pro tips, absolutely. Always necessary. Thank you. Yeah.
I was gonna say stainless steel. Stainless steel's awesome. Rust is not awesome. Nickel plating. So you were talking about people being allergic to metals. Nickel plating is very common, and nickel is a very common allergy as well. So just being mindful about that and making sure that you're buying from a reputable company.
Great. So like if your earrings, for example, if they discolor, make sure your sex toys aren't made out of the same materials. Enjoy is a very reputable brand. Absolutely. There are other ones as well. Stainless steel is also great for the most part. There's zero seams, right? It's just made out of one piece, super easy to clean, and great for temperature play. It's also weighted, so it engages body muscles differently. There's lots of wonderful things with steel. But super body safe or not super body safe?
Super body.
Perfect. Who's next? Who's in the back? It's okay. I don't either.
Something like that. It's a safe, hard plastic, friendly for water, oil, and safe fibers. Enhances vibration as well. It's hypoallergenic. It's generally cheap in cost, phthalate free, non-porous, and firm. Somebody likes the firm feel of the plastic better than soap. It's good for G-spot and prostate stimulation. It has cracks in it, throw it out. Some newer products have ABS plastic, lipstick one. For the still on ones.
They have ABS plastic on the ends of them, yeah. And then these are ABS plastic as well. A distinction is ABS plastic versus other plastics. Make sure that it is ABS plastic. Other plastics can be softer and more porous. So something like this is probably porous, more hiding places. Perfect. Thank you. All right. ABS plastic, super body safe, not super body safe.
What about stone?
Do you think more or less body safe than stone?
Less.
It depends.
I depend on the
What do we
size,
think?
not porous.
Yeah,
Like all the
more
time.
porous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
have to look at
there
the
are
stone.
more porous stones, and that's what I would say too. Again, it's totally debatable. Continuums we can always debate, but there's more opportunities for stones to be porous than there is for ABS plastic to be porous. Awesome. Yep. Who's next? Go for it.
You put elastomer, which I had never heard of. But the sources that we found say that similar to silicone, is essentially like hypoallergenic, latex-free, no phthalates. You use water-based lube with it, soft, malleable, durable. So you said
Yes, oftentimes, absolutely. What did you search for? Did you just search
we
elastomer?
just searched elastomer.
Awesome. And were there any other terms that came up often?
I mean, if you just search elastomer, you get like the wiki page with like the chemical structure and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you search sex toy, I got some pretty reputable looking sex toy store websites.
Awesome. Oftentimes you'll see elastomer associated with like TPE or TPR, depending on the source. It's going to tell you it is body safe or not. Again, that's where you get to do your research and determine what works for you, for sure. This is elastomer. Tenga products are made of elastomer. They feel real cool. Super soft. Great alternative to things that are really porous, like fleshlights are often made out of really porous materials. So something like this is a great alternative. Or like rubber, really, really porous. Absolutely. Great job. Who's next?
So we had silicone.
Who's next?
Okay, so we just searched for silicone or silicone sex toy. We ended up looking at Wikipedia, but also dictionary.com and holisticwisdom.com. And so we already kind of talked about silicone. It's made up of silicone. So that's the technical definition there. It can be all kinds of different forms. It can be a fluid, resinous, it can be rubbery. It is water repellent. It can be used in lots of different ways besides sex toys. Adhesives, lubricants, hydraulic oils, electrical insulation, cosmetics. So it has a lot of uses. It's used to make the toy feel more like skin. So it's used for a lot of like not just these kinds of toys that we pass around, but also like like sex dolls that are made to feel like skin and rubbery tissue. It's hypoallergenic, no smell, no taste. The toys made out of silicone can be dishwasher safe. And you can bleach them, you can boil them, according to holisticwisdom.com. But it is important, like we said earlier, to make sure that the toy that you get, that you know what all is in it, because it might not be 100% silicone, it can be a mixture of different things. And don't use silicone with for the reasons that we talked about. It can break the toy material down.
And that's such an important point. So I'm gonna like say it louder to make sure everyone heard. Silicone comes in a lot of different consistencies: liquid silicone, solid silicone, some softer, some not. There's also a lot of additives that are added to silicone because silicone is like the all reigning. If you think of sex toys, oftentimes you think of silicone. So people will mix it with things like Silagel or Silatin or like whatever you want to Sila something. That is not silicone. There's also different levels of like silicone. There's like medical grade silicone all the way down to others. Do a little bit more research into silicone because some are more porous than others.
You can
Something
also
like this,
email us.
absolutely. Something like this could be sold as a silicone toy. Whoever like touched this knows what it smells like. It smells like chemicals. Something like that should not be inserted into your body without a barrier, if at all possible. This is not silicone. It's super porous. It also, all of those chemicals that you smell are going inside of you. And if you locked this in a jar, it would melt. Why? Because of all of the chemicals inside of it So over time, it'll like melt on itself, or melt in the jar, or melt in your body.
That's what I want.
And we put silicone all the way down on that end. It's super, super body safe as long as it's silicone. Awesome. And last but not least.
Here, I'll hold it for you.
I guess I'll. Glass is made of glass. Can be hard. It's made the right way. It's kind of heat treated. It's kind of like a Pyrex style. It's shatter resistant. Somebody looked it up. You looked it up, and it was like 3,000 pounds of force that you would need to break it if it's a proper toy. Glass doesn't vibrate, but you can do sensation play, warm and cool. But it isn't flexible. So if you wanted or need a flexible toy, glass is not flexible. Is it body safe if it's used appropriately? Incredibly body safe. Super cleanable. All lubes are okay. Non-toxic. If it doesn't have any sharp edges and if it's not broken, it's gentle in your orifices. But it has to be specifically a toy rather than just like glass things laying around your house.
Like no light bulbs, please. I heard a story last week. No light bulbs, please.
Things that end up in your butt.
Yeah, that shouldn't. Think about it. Don't think too hard.
And then any damage will make it unusable. That face, I'm sorry.
So unfortunately, if it like nicks against something, your glass toy just became a work of art that you can use as a paperweight, but not internally anymore. Yes, absolutely. Glass is wonderful as long as it is made of the correct types of glass. So do your research on that. We call it a glass. It's a plastic cup. Don't use that. Alrighty, so we have part of the continuum. There's lots of other materials that can be added. The reason we ask about what were your search terms and like what resources you used is because, again, we live in a capitalist society and sex toy manufacturers most of them don't actually care about your well-being, and there's no regulations to incentivize them to do so. So it's up to you to do the research yourself and then empower your clients and students to do that as well. There's lots of sex toy reviewers who are super, super passionate about things like this. Dangerous Lily is one of my favorites, super accessible, super informative, and also has a list of other sex toy bloggers that do very similar things. Maybe not safe for work, depending on if you work at those lists. Questions? We answered all of their questions. Good job. Impressed. Thank you all very, very much. Please welcome